join me in welcoming researcher, explorer, and discoverer of the Templar Caves of Brazil, Dr. Kathleen Ball. Thank you for coming, Dr. Ball. We're blessed to have you sharing with us this evening.
Well, thank you so much. I really appreciate this. And I'm excited actually to meet you all and to share my story about the discovery of the cave and well, kind of the background that led up to that as well. And let's get on with it. So I think I'll start by just going into a little background story of how it didn't happen just going to Brazil. There was a lot of background information that had happened prior. I think I'll go back to beginning in 1990, in March of 1990, March 11th. I had a near-death experience that was profound. It changed my life, completely changed my life. Um, I had been, I had drank and smoked and did all sorts of things, publicly. And I just stopped everything. It's like I felt that from that point forward, my body had to be completely pure. So that included, prescription, everything. I mean, other than things that you have to have, antibiotics and whatnot. But anyway, so that happened on March 11th in 1990. And from that time forward, I felt as if I was sort of living between dimensions is the only way I can describe it. I felt like I was in contact with the Holy Spirit um, constantly. It's between the three-dimensional world and the timeless dimension of God, basically. I know that sounds strange, but that's what happened. And so from that time forward, I started researching and looking into history and everything that I was guided to do. I read the Bible several hundred times, actually. I went through it with a fine-tooth comb, and I discovered a lot of things in the Old Testament that were revealed to me, and Revelations, which were my two favorite parts of the Bible. And that was the first thing I did. Then I started doing comparative studies with other religions, other spiritual belief systems and religions. And I went around and just researched all of those spiritual belief systems and religions that that I was aware of, that I know of on this planet. So that took several years, and then that led into a study of quantum physics, quantum theory, and then that led into a comparative study with quantum physics and spiritual belief systems. So by 2006, I was also researching ancient spiritual belief systems, the Cathars and many of the Gnostic groups. And that finally led me to the Templars. In about 2004, I started researching the Templars. And in 2006, as we all know, Dan Brown's book came out. And I happened to have been in Italy at the time when when that movie came out. And actually, it was not well received in Rome at the time. But I was doing a tour of Leonardo da Vinci for a class from the college that I worked at Columbia. And I had also done a portrait of Leonardo da Vinci. And I was taking a Da Vinci Museum in Vinci, Italy, where Leonardo was born. They had requested a copy of this particular portrait that I did. So I took that over to them. And then the students and I, we were granted access into the convent in Florence, where he had lived. They had just discovered what had been whitewashed over was Leonardo's Birds in Flight in 2005, I believe, and we got to see it in 2006. Anyway, and then that led us, along the whole trail of Leonardo all through Italy and eventually into Amboise, France, which is where he lived with King Francis I. And so that started my research, really in-depth research into the Templars. And I also, having been in France, a lot of the French people believe that the Templars were protecting the bloodline of Jesus and Mary. Now, whether that is true or not. They believe it. They firmly believe it. And so, I got a lot of information on that, and I was drawn to several places where Mary Magdalene had reportedly been, and this whole story. I was introduced to the whole story in the background. And I kind of put it on the back shelf because, on the back of my mind, I didn't really put a whole lot of energy into it until 2009 when I went back to France with my husband. Um, my husband and I had been reunited. We were high school sweethearts and we had gotten separated back way back then. We both married other people. His wife died, my husband died, and we we got back together in 2008. Well, 2009, we went back to France. I went back to France and he went with me. We went for a month. And our whole itinerary had been planned. And we realized that the person who planned the itinerary didn't really navigate, didn't understand the distances between places in France. So by the time we got into Dome, we had a little laborie that we rented and in Senac, and we got in at 1 a.m. We were supposed to get there sometime around dinner. So we almost ended up sleeping on the side of the road if it hadn't been for the baker in town who guided us very graciously to a woman in town who had some rooms available, and we were settled. But anyway, so we let go of the gal, the agent that had designed the tour for us, and we were basically winging it at that point. And so we decided to go into Dome, and there was an art exhibit there that I wanted to see, and there was also a grotto there that I wanted to see. And when we were coming up from the grotto, the museum curator came up to me and said, "Would you like to see where the Templars were held before they were killed? There's a dungeon here in Dome." And I just said, "Sure, I'd love to." So he walks us over to the dungeon, hands me the key, and says, "Take as long as you would like, madame, and just bring me back the key when you're done." Which was sort of an odd thing to happen. But anyway, so I went in and I photographed all of the graffiti and picked up on the energy there. There was a tremendous amount of anguish that I picked up on there, and peace. It was really interesting. There was a lot of energy that I felt like was contained within the walls of the dungeon itself. So I photographed everything, and that was in 2009. And then, we went on to Marseille. We were on the hunt for Mary Magdalene for any, artifacts or whatever. And I'd heard that there was a place where they had some relics that was near Marseille. So we went into Marseille. And at that point, some really interesting thing happened. We get to the cathedral in Marseille, and a nun opens the door and she grabs me and she starts crying and she says, "I've been waiting for you, madame. I've been waiting for you. I learned English in college, so when you came, I could speak with you." I'd never knew this woman before in my life. I'd never met her. I had no idea who she was. Anyway, so she hustles me off into her little studio in the back, and she draws me a map and she tells me about the bloodline of Jesus and Mary. And she tells me that there was a grotto where Mary had lived in intercessory prayer for 17 years. And she begged me to go there and to allow whatever took place, that I would know what to do, is what she told me. Now you'll know what to do when you get there, but promise me that you will go. So I'd had some pretty interesting spiritual experiences, so this wasn't really that new to me, but I was very surprised that the woman had been waiting for me for years. She was obviously in her late 50s at the time. So we go to try to find this place in Saint Baume, and we went into Saint Maximus. We found we found the area, the small chapel that had all the relics. of Mary Magdalene. Well, not all of them, but there's a skull, and there's a couple of other bones that they have that they keep, of her. They say that they're her. Who knows? But anyway, so we went there, but we couldn't find St. Bone. The signage isn't that great. So we went on to Nice, and my husband and I were supposed to meet someone on the 4th of July. And so we went on to Nice and Monaco and the rest of our tour down there. And I woke up in the middle of the night, one night, and I said, we have to go back. We have to go back to St. Bone. I promised that nun that I would go, and I just have this feeling that I'm drawn back. I have to go back. And I drew this little hut in my sketchbook. This is about 4:00 in the morning. And I wake up out of a sound sleep, and I draw this hut, and I get this just very strong urge to go back to St. Bone. So we go back, and this time we drive right to it. We drive right to St. Bone. We get right to the convent that's up there. We pull in, there's a room available. Everything is just like it's smooth sailing. So the following morning, we get up and we start climbing the mountain up into this grotto where Mary Magdalene was supposed to have stayed. And I'm just feeling this interdimensional experience. I mean, birds are coming up to me and butterflies are landing on me. And I really feel like I'm in an interdimensional state. And we get up to the grotto, which had been, it was cared for by, I think it was a Franciscan order. I'm not sure exactly which order, but anyway, long story short, we walk in and I immediately feel this real dense, dark energy. And I feel like it's pushing on me, like suffocating me. So I sit down and I go into intercessory prayer. And I immediately start seeing this swirling energy in this place, just dark and swirls and faces coming up to me. And they're all going out the top of this grotto. They're just swirling out. And this was about 45 minutes or so. And then the light came in, just streaming in after that. And the whole place I just felt in my, mind's eye, I could see this. It felt like the whole place was just lit up and it was beautiful. Anyway, so apparently that was what I was supposed to be there for. I don't know, but I was a conduit of some sort to be able to do this. So long story short, the priest, I opened my eyes and they were doing the Eucharist, and this priest was looking at me and just beaming. He's just like got this big smile on his face. He tells me later that he says, "Thank you, Madame. Thank you so much." Well, the bishop that he had come in with and their entourage, the bishop wasn't real pleased. And I'm not really sure if it was because he didn't think I was a Catholic or what. I'm not really sure why he was upset, but he was upset. And the priest that came back in apologized for his behavior and thanked me again for what I had done. So apparently on some level, he must have been aware of it. But anyway, so this was 2009. And then, we went on with our tour after this. And we came home 2010, 2011, 2013. I'm diagnosed with severe, I had several cancerous tumors in my liver. I had a liver disease that I had contracted in 1975. And so my liver was just deteriorating and there wasn't much I could do. I had used Chinese medicine and all sorts of things and nothing was working. So here we are, 2013, and I'm diagnosed with liver cancer. And I decided that I'm going to go to South America and do some indigenous healing exercises. Between 2013 and 2015, I was participating in these ceremonies. And I also went to see John of God at one point in Abadiania. And this in 2015, the woman that a friend of mine who I'd met in Bosnia, she says, "I'm going to be doing guiding tours in Abadiania. Why don't you come to Brazil and just go through this ceremony, this whole situation with John of God and see if it does any good?" So I say, okay, sure, let's do it. So I get there and I'm about 3 days early. He only sees people between Wednesdays and Sundays. And I got there on, I think it was Sunday afternoon or something. So she says, well, in the meantime, let's head up to Alto Paraíso, or let's head up to Chapada National Forest area and go see the waterfalls. They're beautiful. They're supposed to be really beautiful. And so let's go up to that area. And so she had arranged for what they call a pousada, which is a hotel. And we got a rental car and we headed up that direction. And I don't know exactly what happened, but she blew the clutch on 2 rental cars on the way there. They're standard shift. So we had to wait. And I believe that all these things are divine timing, including not being able to go to St. Baume the first time because the timing, God, for whatever reason, the timing wasn't right. Same thing with this situation. So with the blowing of the 2 clutches, eventually we got up to close to the Chapada area. We couldn't make it to the hotel because it was too dark. So she says, well, there's a couple little towns right here. Let's see if there's anything in one of those. And I said, well, what are the names? And she said, Moino, Cavalcante, San Jorge, Alto Paraíso. And I said, Alto Paraíso, does that mean paradise? She said, yes. I said, let's go there. So we went, we got a pousada right away, no problem. Next day we got up. I walked into town, met with a bunch of locals. We found out where the waterfall areas were. And 2 days later, we went to Agua Fria, which was the waterfall that's closest to the cave. And we hiked down to the waterfall and it was just fabulous. I mean, these are the most magnificent waterfalls in this area. And there's about 22 of them. They're all over the place. It's absolutely gorgeous area. So we come back up and the fellow that owned the Camping Pousada, which was there on that property, Fernando is his name. Fernando says, hey, gals, would you like to go see this property next door? There's a crystal vein that meanders through the property, and it's about 1 meter high by about 1.5 to 2 meters in thickness, and it's about 1 meter in height. And it runs about, what did he say, 3 kilometers. And so we said, sure, that sounds great. And he said, there's all sorts of crystals on the ground. There's thousands of them, and you can take some. You can take some back with you if you'd like. So he gets a hold of the fellow next door, Leomar, and sends us over there. And we meet Leomar, and he takes us on this hike about 3.5, 4 kilometers or so down this, meandering, windy road. And we're out in the middle of nowhere, mind you. This is in the middle of nowhere in Brazil. We're out in the woods. I mean, there's nothing there except this little trail. Anyway, so we get down to where the crystal vein is. And it's magnificent. And we're picking up crystals and we keep finding bigger and bigger ones. They were just magnificent. They're just beautiful. Anyway, so we're picking up crystals and putting them in our backpack. And we get down to this crystal vein. And it's literally about 2 meters in width. And it's about 1 meter in height, and it runs the distance. It just runs probably 3 kilometers across, right through the middle of this property. And it's out in the middle of the sun, and we were cooking by then. So he says to us, Leomar says to us, would you like to go down into this cave and cool off? And we'll just rest a little while before we head back up. So we said, of course, yeah, that sounds great. So we're walking, it's about probably another 1.5 kilometers or so. And we're walking down into this area, and it's getting cooler and cooler. And there's some vegetation, and we get to what looks like a dark area. We couldn't tell what it was. We presumed it was the cave. And he lifts up the bushes, and my mouth dropped, and I just went, oh my God, that's a Knights Templar cross. What is a Knights Templar cross doing on this cave in the middle of Brazil? I was just completely shocked. And he starts rattling off information about the Templars having been there, and that many of the families in the area were descendants of the Templars, and in his broken English, and I'm not getting a whole lot of it. Anyway, so that's how that happened. That's how that whole thing happened. And I would not have recognized the cross if I hadn't seen the crosses in Dome. If I had not seen those, I would not have known that that was a Templar cross. So there was no, it was not a coincidence, I don't believe. I believe that it was, I was guided, basically. The whole thing was part of a plan of some sort. And so then I did a video interview with Leomar at the time. And I found out later, when I had it translated completely, when I was doing the documentary, and we hired a translator for the documentary to translate some of my guest speakers that are in the documentary. And we found out that there's actually 3 more caves on the property. So that was really interesting. So my next trip to Brazil is going to be in July. And I've got several things that I'm going to be doing. Going to find out where the location of these other 3 caves are. I'm also going to go inside this cave that I've already discovered that was filled at the time with about 2,000 spiders and about 200 or 300 bats. So we've decided we're going to smoke them out at night, the night prior, so that it doesn't hurt them, and they'll just leave on their own volition, so that it'll be clear the next morning when we go back in. I'm just going to camp out by the cave. And I also have a metal detector that I had ordered that's now in Alta Paraiso that's waiting for me. So we're going to be doing some more excavation going into the cave, because I saw some really interesting graffiti inside the cave. There were some shields and swords and just other graffiti, and I have to be able to decipher whether that is contemporary or if it's possibly Knights Templar carvings. I did find out that the cave is a gold mine. So that was a real interesting development. So apparently the Templars were mining gold in that area. And I would suspect that the other 3 caves are probably gold mines as well. But anyway, so that's brings you up to speed with the documentary and what's going on with the documentary. I also will be, I'm writing a book. I've actually written it, and I'm now in the editing process with the publishing editor. So it should be out in the next few months, 3 to 4 months. And that is my Grail quest that led to the discovery of a Templar cave in Brazil. So that's going to be coming out. And then I also have a little bit of research that I'm looking into with the connection of the knights that were created in 586 BC by Zerubbabel during the building of the second temple. And I'm trying to find out, see if there's any connection between those families and the families that were made up the original Templars in the 1100s, when they organized the Knights Templar that we know about. Trying to find out if there's any connection with those families. And so that's what my research involves, that. And also a Scottish Templar by the name of Duncan MacGregor, who had a nickname, an appellation, that he was called Matheo, which is a name which was given to him, I suspect, because he may have been one of the original knights that went into Brazil. That particular name it's Maceo, means body of water, river, or port. And there's actually a port in Brazil with that name. Now, the interesting thing is that Duncan MacGregor lived between 1236 and 1290 AD. So, and he was a Templar. So it gets really interesting. And that's some more research that I'm also going to be looking into when I go to Brazil, and also when I go into Scotland, back into Scotland in August. So that kind of brings you up to speed with what's happening with how I discovered the cave and what my research is, my current research. And if anyone has any questions, I'll be happy to answer them.
Did you say that there, I mean, you said there was some like graffiti and such. Did you say there was also some, I mean, were there actual things like relics in there as well?
No, I didn't see any relics. Of course, I was halfway into about a third of the way into the cave when I realized that I was surrounded by spiders, like thousands of them. And also, when I looked up, I saw bats, and so I panicked. And I had photographed a little bit of the graffiti that I had seen prior to that, and I immediately backed out. as, as fast as I could, because I had a flashlight with me and I was using my flashlight. And yeah, I just looked around and I went, oh my God, I was surrounded. There's spiders were crawling all over my legs. And it was a real interesting experience. But anyway, so so I'm going to be going back into that cave and really, really dig into and look at that graffiti that's in there, because I did see one it looked like a shield and a sword. So I'm curious to see if there's anything more. And there is like Pat plus so and so and different names and things, which is obviously graffiti from kids. It looks like kids have probably been in there. But according to Leomar, the cave itself was used by the indigenous women to pray and conduct secret ceremonies. So, and it had been used for hundreds of years for that purpose. So there's a lot of interesting information about the cave itself that I really want to dig more into.
Very interesting. Thank you so much for sharing this. Are there any questions that anyone has for Dr. Ball at this time?
I just wanted to say thank you for the presentation. It's very interesting. I understand you have a documentary out already, and I'll have to look those up. I'm not familiar, but I'll be watching them hopefully tonight. Thank you.
Okay, yeah, it's out on Gaia. It's the Brazilian Templars Mystery. It's out on Gaia, and I am told by my agent that it's recently come out on Amazon Prime as well. So you can access it through either of those networks.
Thank you.
You said on Amazon Prime?
Yeah, Amazon Prime. And I checked it to make sure that and you can actually access it through that. So
okay, thank you. Pastor DeLong, you have a question?
Yes, first, beautiful presentation. Thank you. The name of your book that you were mentioning is the title is A Grail Quest That Led to the Grail. Is that the
that led to the discovery of a Templar cave in Brazil.
Okay, and then I'm sorry, I didn't get everything for your documentary. Was it the Brazilian Templar
Mystery? Yeah.
Thank you so much.
You're very welcome. Yeah.
Anyone else at this time?
Kathleen, just really want to say thank you. Excellent presentation. And I had spent time in Portugal, so appreciated that little bit there in the beginning. But always wanted to go to Brazil, and definitely envy your experiences. But that is incredible. So just want to really thank you. That is an amazing story, and amazing how you happened to get down there and appreciate that very much, for conveying that to us.
You're welcome. Yeah, it was, I don't know how to really explain it, but I feel like that this quest basically that I'm on, it's a path that is preordained, it's predestined. I don't really have, every time I've tried to just live a normal life, I can't. Yeah, I somehow get led right back into it again. You know, when I married, my husband and I got married in 2009. That was the last thing on my mind, that I was going to be on this quest and end up going to St. Baume, and and going into the um, the dungeon in Dome, and being faced with all this Templar graffiti and the story of the Templars there. It was the last thing on my mind. I mean, I was on my honeymoon, and but this thing just keep happening. So you know, I'm just continue to follow the path and continue to do what's in front of me and what I'm directed to do. So it's exciting, it's exciting as well. I enjoy it. I love the work. I love the research. I've always been a researcher and I've always been a reader. So I really enjoy it. And, and that's not a whole lot of people can say that what they do for a living is that enjoyable.
So Kathleen, the message from the nun, I wanted to ask you about the nun that said, "Madame, I've been waiting for you all these years." So
Right.
what exactly was the message? I mean, what was it that she had to tell you? Or was it something secret?
Well, she told me about the story of the bloodline of Jesus and Mary. Again, this came up again in the conversation.
Mary
And
Magdalene or Mary Virgin?
Mary Magdalene.
Mary Magdalene, okay.
Right, Mary Magdalene and Jesus. And she told me that there were 3 children, and that they had been, one of them had been in the bloodline of the French kings, and had come forward into time, through the French monarchy, and that there were 2 other children, and one was just a peasant. She told me about peasant, as how she put it, and just sort of, I guess, disappeared into oblivion, and then another one went into Scotland. But anyway, but her main thing was that she wanted me to promise to go to St. Baume and conduct whatever this was. She said I would know what to do when I got there.
Oh.
And that was her biggest thing. That was what she really emphasized that she wanted me to do. So I did it.
And did you know what it was that she wanted you to do, or?
Not at the time. I didn't know anything about it until I was up there. And when I got there, and I just felt the darkness pushing on me. I felt like I was almost claustrophobic feeling, and I'm not a claustrophobic person at all. So when I felt this dark energy just pushing on me, the only thing I knew to do was just to go into intercessory prayer. It's the only thing I knew to do. So when I did that, that's when everything started. That's when everything started happening. And the outcome of that was this place was filled with light. And I haven't the slightest idea why I was guided to do that. I haven't the slightest idea, but whatever it was, that's what she wanted me to do. So
that's real fascinating.
Yeah,
well,
it was.
We have other couple hands there, Janelle. People want to ask questions.
Yes, Sergeant Williams from Vegas. I do have a question. I watched your 2-part interview that you gave on your website and the documentary, but when do you plan on going back to Brazil again?
I'm going back in July, about the July 19th. It depends. I have a grandson who has a birthday on the 18th. So it depends on what we're having his party. After that, I'll be leaving. So somewhere around the 19th of July, and I'll be there for a month.
And is your book going to include that visit, or
No.
Is the book coming out? Okay.
No, it's not. I've actually, my agent has instructed me to just continue to write. So I'm going to continue to write. There will be a second book that's going to come out that's, that will reflect the new research that I'm doing.
Excellent. All right. Thank you.
Yeah, I'm actually going to be going when I go to Brazil first, and then there's 9 other countries that I'll be going to. And back to Portugal, I'll be going to Ethiopia, into Turkey, India, Ethiopia, and back to Scotland, and into Spain and France, and back to France. So there's going to be 9 other, there'll be a series of 9 more documentaries. So the one that we just completed last year will actually serve as a pilot for the rest of the series.
Excellent. I have another question. I'm sorry. Well, I don't know if it was from what I was watching today, but wasn't, or maybe another video I was watching, that there was a possibility that Jesus during his younger years, ages, I don't know, I think it was 6 to 13 or even younger, may have been to Ethiopia. Was that from your interview?
I don't know if Jesus was there specifically, but I do know that the Templars in Portugal were there in Ethiopia. I know that they traveled freely back and forth between Ethiopia. And I also know that the Ethiopian king came into Tomar, Portugal on 2 occasions, at least 2 occasions, and it's documented. So there was some reason why they had this relationship with Ethiopian kings, and specifically the monarchy, and why they traveled back and forth, I don't know, but I suspect it may have had something to do with the Ark of the Covenant.
Yeah, I think it was from another, some other videos I was watching this afternoon after you sparked my interest from your interview. And I think there was mention in one of the other videos of the relationship, maybe it was amongst the Templars in Ethiopia too. So I'll be interested to read that from your work.
Yeah, I had talked with Freddie Silva about this because he also discovered the same information in his research. So this is something that we have both discussed, and we've also discussed the fact that these other families, these earlier order of knights that was created in 586 BC, may very well be connected to the families that were the original Templars in 1100s when they were first created. So I think that I'm just opening up a can of worms here. I think I'm just opening up a whole line of research that no one has ever gone into before. And we may find out some real interesting information. I've had a couple of Templars in Portugal contact me and offer their research and any assistance that they can give me with the names and translating names, and that sort of information and assistance. So I'm getting a tremendous amount of assistance from people, which is really interesting. That's really interesting to me because that doesn't usually happen. So I'm really happy about that.
Well, if you need any other volunteers, let us know.
Anybody else at this time have any questions? Okay, well, again, I thank you, Dr. Ball, for sharing all this information about the mysteries of the Templars in Brazil with us. And whenever you find out more information and you gather even more documented information when you go back into that, please let us know, and maybe we can have something again so we can know more about this area.
I certainly will. I'll contact Ruby when I get back from Brazil, which will be in August. I have another interview coming up with a radio. I have a radio show coming up in August that I have to be back for. So I'll contact Ruby about those, just about what I discover in the caves when I get up there. I'm just really eager to get back there. but I'll let you know what's going to happen with that. We also have a metal detector, so I'm hoping that we're going to find some actual artifacts.
Oh,
So,
that would be great. That would be really good.
yeah, I'll keep you posted.
Okay, thank you.
Well, I
You're very-
can't thank you enough for coming on and talking with us. A lot of us have been really looking forward hearing about the caves and your discoveries, and you're just another lineage to the Templars that will just keep an eye on you and see what develops. And let me
Alrighty.
know. Let me know as soon as your book is released, so we can all order it.
I certainly will.
And thank you for coming.
You're very welcome.
All right.
Yes, thank you. Is there any prayer request at this time before Pastor DeLong closes us in prayer?